McLaren's having a tough time in 2022, and its prospects of improving didn't seem promising when McLaren team principal Andreas Seidl said after June's Canadian Grand Prix that there were no plans for any major upgrades. And yet, at the French Grand Prix, the McLaren MCL 36 appeared with a pretty substantial upgrade package. Our technical expert here at the race, Gary Anderson, described the team as really going to town on the new package. The key changes are those to the floor and sidepods, which helped Lando Norris qualify 5th at Paul Ricard before finishing 7th in the race. So let's take a closer look at exactly what has changed and the impact on performance, as well as explaining why McLaren introduced an upgrade that it denied was in the pipeline. Before we get into technical detail, let's delve into exactly what was said about the chances of upgrades. Speaking after the race in Montreal, Seidl said emphatically that there would be no major upgrades for the rest of the season. So it was something of a surprise when Daniel Ricciardo took to the track during FP1 in France with what looked like a significant upgrade package. After the session, the race asked Seidl to explain the incongruity, and he argued he never said there wouldn't be any upgrades, suggesting clickbait headlines were to blame. Now, Seidl left the door open when he spoke in Canada for what he called further small little changes. So to get into semantics, if McLaren considers this upgrade package not to be major, it is possible to square off what he said in Canada with the existence of this upgrade. That's probably stretching a point, but there's other factors in play here, the first of which is the lead time for such upgrades. These designs will have been in the works for some time, so perhaps he was looking at it in terms of this package already having gone through most of the design work. But there's another, more likely explanation to be found in the cost cap. When Seidl spoke in Canada, the dispute about increasing the cost cap to allow for inflation and rising costs was in full swing. But that's since been resolved, with a 3.1% increase in the cost cap agreed in early July, not as much as teams like McLaren wanted, but enough to tackle the problem effectively. But McLaren wasn't keen to suggest it had endless new parts working their way through the system, given the claim it couldn't avoid exceeding the original cost cap figure thanks to rising costs. Politics is of course a big part of F1, so it was perhaps judicious not to shout about there being more upgrades in the pipeline. Although it should be noted, the team has said that this upgrade would have arrived whether or not the cost cap was changed. And there could yet be more upgrades. As Seidl said, now the cost cap increase to tackle inflation has been agreed, the team knows how much it has to spend. Whether McLaren will introduce another significant package remains to be seen, but it's clear that it won't be quite as powerless in the development war as Seidl's Canada comment suggested. The eye-catching part of McLaren's French Grand Prix upgrade is the new sidepod design. McLaren started the season with more of an in-wash sidepod concept. Think of that as a shorter sidepod that curves inwards towards the rear end, taking the airflow around the outside of the sidepod, then channeling it into the Coke bottle area at the rear of the car. The key visual identifier for this is the way the vertical part of the sidepod turns inwards. At May's Spanish Grand Prix, McLaren took a step away from this by introducing more of a downwash element, with a longer top surface that channels airflow down from the top of the sidepod into the Coke bottle area. The key visual identifier for this is the downward ramp. McLaren technical director James Key described the French Grand Prix package as a logical progression from the Spain upgrade. So it's no surprise to see McLaren introducing an evolution of the sidepods which sweep down even more, with the Coke bottle undercut reduced. Effectively, McLaren has now fully committed to the downwash bodywork geometry by introducing bulkier sidepods with a longer top surface that then sweeps downwards. When asked by the race to explain this development direction, Key revealed that McLaren had considered launching with a downwash sidepod design before opting for its original inwash concept. The question is, why has McLaren made this change? On Sunday morning before the French Grand Prix, we asked Key to explain the trade-offs between the downwash and inwash sidepod concepts. He explained that while the more compact inwash concept can potentially produce more overall downforce, the downwash design with a longer top surface that sweeps the airflow downwards can be more consistent and therefore ensure the entire aeromap of the car works better. And remember, the airflow to the rear of the car that passes over the top of the diffuser and heads to the beam wing and the rear wing itself, as well as around the rear tyres, is all connected. The way this works, with the multiple interacting airflows in the powerful ground effect underfloors, is critical to how well the car works. Most teams are towards one end or the other of the downwash versus inwash spectrum. Red Bull is perhaps the most aggressive in terms of downwash concept, whereas Ferrari has more of an inwash approach. Although the Ferrari has a large top surface to the sidepods, the airflow is aimed towards the beam wing rather than pointed downwards, while the lower part of the sidepods do turn that airflow aggressively inwards. Since Williams changed its design, Mercedes is now the sole outlier with its zero sidepod concept. But while designs are gradually converging around a couple of different approaches, there's still a long way to go for the top teams in optimising their sidepod shape. McLaren has also raised the outer corner of the sidepod. This is similar to what Ferrari and Alpine have done and aims to reduce the amount of airflow spilling over the outer corner of the sidepod and into the Coke bottle. This all works together to separate the airflow that is being used by the front corner of the floor to generate downforce in that area. This area uses the underfloor splitters to turn that airflow out of the sides of the floor through this small veined area away from the flow going into and through the Coke bottle area. But the crucial part is what we can't see, the underfloor. The changes on the top of the floor and to the sidepods are designed to work with this, so the visible parts are effectively to facilitate whatever unseen changes there are beneath the car. However, you can look at what's happening on top of the floor. Opening up a duct in the rear part of the floor, as McLaren has done, allows more airflow to be pulled through this area. The airflow being displaced by the rear tyre rotating onto the track surface is very powerful, where it goes around the inner corner of the tyre's contact patch. This is commonly known as tyre squirt. If this high energy flow can be connected up to the inlet on this floor duct, then it will pull airflow through this area. Otherwise, that airflow would normally be pulled into the underfloor and diffuser, reducing the amount of downforce that these components can generate. The inlet of this duct needs to be positioned on or near to where the low pressure in the underfloor is at its lowest, so the inlet position fore and aft is critical to how it will perform. Overall, this surely has to be considered a major package for McLaren, even if it is an evolutionary step rather than a revolutionary one. So, did the McLaren upgrade package work? Well, according to the team, it correlated well with simulations produced at the factory, which is always a promising sign. Ricciardo ran the package first, while Norris stuck with the old specification for FP1 by way of comparison. McLaren then bolted the upgrade to Norris's car for FP2 and both ran it for the rest of the weekend. Norris went on to qualify a strong 5th, lapping 1.160 seconds off the pace. This was the first time a McLaren had been in the top 5 in qualifying since the Monaco Grand Prix 5 races earlier. When the race asked Norris about it, he admitted to being very surprised at being able to split the Mercedes drivers. While the deficit to the front was middling by McLaren's 2022 standards, the fact it was ahead of its direct rivals and challenging Mercedes was encouraging. But there was a rude awakening in the race, with Norris taking 7th and unable to live with the pace of Alpine's Fernando Alonso. Ricciardo backed him up in 9th, but McLaren's rival for 4th in the Constructors' Championship, Alpine, was ahead courtesy of Fernando Alonso's run to 6th place. Norris suggested what happened in the race was evidence that the upgraded car isn't as competitive in race trim as on single lap pace. And although he picked up some debris during the race, he didn't believe that changed the result. Teammate Ricciardo was upbeat, feeling the car has improved, although the fundamental characteristics he struggled with this year remain unchanged. So just how big a step is McLaren's upgrade? The answer to that is inconclusive, although there's no doubt it is an improvement. But if McLaren is to hit back in the battle for 4th in the Constructors' Championship after falling behind Alpine, which definitely has some upgrades in the pipeline, it's going to need to unlock improved race pace, starting this weekend in Hungary.